Hi, in this demonstration I'm going to show you how to use Azure Active Directory and guest user access to provide access to Zscaler private access. We're going to go through how to invite a user, how to use Zscaler private access browser-based access to give users access to applications purely in a web browser. And then we're going to talk about enrollment for ZPA and Zscaler app to provide access to applications that don't work through a browser. So I'm going to demonstrate SSH. Azure Active Directory, I'm using a shared tenant here. It's got a number of different accounts in there. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and create a new guest user because we want to go ahead and invite Mark.A.Ryan at btinternet.com over to use our tenant. And so I'm just going to say, hi, please click enroll and accept this invite. You don't need to put any words in there, but it's always polite. So we'll click invite, and that's going to generate an email across to my personal email account where I can sign in, accept the request. And what we're going to do is we're going to use Safari for all of my administration function and Google Chrome for all of the browser function, only because it keeps the two distinct. Whilst that email is going across, it'll probably have already arrived, but we'll just run through a couple of things in Active Directory that we've got configured. So I've got my enterprise applications. I'm specifically using the Zscaler Beta Cloud for this demonstration. So we've got Zscaler Private Access Beta here. For the properties of it, it's automatically assigned to all users. And in the display pane, the portal page that we'll get to see of which applications are assigned, I've got Zscaler not visible, and the reason why I don't want it visible to users is actually Zscaler Private Access and Zscaler Internet Access are SP initiated, service provider initiated single sign-on. We don't want users clicking a tile in their portal because it's IDP initiated, and we don't want to support that for these functions. So the private access and internet access are not visible to the users, and they're automatically assigned to all users. Nice and easy. In terms of single sign-on for ZPA, standard configuration for everything here. A couple of things we're doing. We're going to send across the given name. We're going to send across the surname, the user's email address. And we're going to do a transformation on the user principal name to make sure that the suffix for the user principal name is my ZPA tenant ID, welshgeek.net. And we're also going to send across in groups because we're going to use group policy as well. This change in the suffix is really important for me on this account, as I'll show you in a second, because I'm using a shared tenant. Okay, so that's where we are with that. Exactly the same when we look at the ZIA beta account, properties, again, automatically assigned to all users, invisible to users on the portal page. Single sign-on is Zscaler Beta, and we're sending across the groups as well and doing the same transformation. Okay. Oh, by the way, I'm actually doing a join of username and given name and surname to create a display name, but yeah, we don't have to do that. So there we go. That's all set up and running. And so we sent the guest user credential over. And actually, there's one other thing that I want to do for the guest user. We'll take a look at the guest user. At the moment, it's just invited. So let's come out of that, and we'll go and check my email. And there's the email that's come in 3 minutes ago because I was still talking. Please click enroll and accept this invite. So this is going to go ahead, and it's going to open up Google Chrome. And it's actually going to prompt me to log in to live.com. I'm already signed into live.com. I probably should have cleared my cookies, but you'd have seen that I sign in as mark.a.ryan at btinternet.com. So I'm going to accept the invitation. It'll complete all of that enrollment process that goes on with the Azure AD and federation of credentials. And you'll see, as we said, no apps are assigned because we don't want the apps to be visible. But if we wanted to publish some SharePoint or whatever, we could use this exact same function for that. And if we look at the user credential, here, you can see that I'm now mark, as far as this tenant is concerned, mark.a.ryan, it replaces the at with an underscore, mark.a.ryan underscore btinternet.com #ext hash to highlight I'm an external user. And here is my default tenant ID. As I said, I'm using a shared instance, davil.onmicrosoft.com. So it's really important that I transform that suffix to be welshgeek.net when I consume it into Zscaler. Okay, so that's all set up and running. Let's just come back to my Safari, and if we refresh this now, you'll see I've gone from an invited user to a Microsoft account. So I'm shared into that, and we can see all the details of the user, the email address, and everything. And all I'm going to do is I just want to add this user to a group, and that group is called guest. Because we want to apply a policy on that later on. So we'll click select on that. The user is all federated in. Hopefully there we can see all of that, and away we go. So guest access is provided, and so what I can do now is if I can come up to my my Azure AD, my Chrome browser, I can now browse to apache.welshgeek.net. And this is a browser-based, publicly available application that required the SAML single sign-on. Where you can see it's got the certificate that I've provided to it, start.welshgeek.net, and this is running in AWS via Zscaler Private Access. So, okay, great. Let's go and take a look at how that actually looks. So let's go to the ZPA portal and sign in here. And we can see there's a whole load of applications that have been accessed, and let's take a look at apache.welshgeek.net, and we take a look at the time, 13:37. We should see. Let's clear all of this. Let's just double check. It is a beta cloud, so it might take a second or two for the logs to flow through. You can see I was doing some testing earlier today before I started running the logs through. There we go. So here is the 13:36 access, and we can see that there was a success. It was a guest. It applied the policy called browser-based access guest. It was a web browser. The user was located in London in the UK, and we went through and we accessed the Apache server through our Portland, Oregon connector, and we could see all of that data. And there were a couple of objects on the page which resulted in a couple of other application access. So how do we look from a policy perspective to achieve this? So let's go into our access policy. And the access policy says, if it's the user is identity provider is live.com as opposed to my actual SAML IDP, then the user is allowed access just to the Apache web server. But if they try to access any other user within the company, where their identity provider is actually Microsoft Azure AD, they can access all browser-based access applications. And then anybody else gets blocked. So let's have a look at how that looks. Let's go to my guacamole server, guac.welshgeek.net, and I get application blocked by policy. So that's doing as we'd expect. I'm blocked access to any application that is not the Apache server. I've also got some other policies here. So we've got rule 1, allow access to the Apache server for guest users. Rule 2, allow access to browser-based access for all other users. Rule 3, block. And then we come on to rule 4, which says, okay, well, if you're using Zscaler app, you can, and you're a guest user, and we know this time they're a guest user, not because they're authenticated against live.com, but because they're a member of the group guests. So the group guests are allowed to access the Apache server or the Red Hat server. The Red Hat server is defined. I'll go back and have a look at that in a second. Here we go. Red Hat server is only available on port 22. So it's an SSH application that we're going to give the users access to. And then our next rule is guests are denied access to everything else. and then normal directory users are able to access everything. So how do we get that policy working? Now, the important thing to realize when we start talking about Zscaler app and enrolling users is that Zscaler app is going to enroll the user into both Zscaler Internet Access and Zscaler Private Access. So let's have a look at the mobile portal and just check how we've got this configured. So we look at our Mac users, specifically because I'm testing on a Mac, but we do the same across any other kind, any other app profile, and I've got my ZPA guest policy, and it says if the user is a member of this specific group, so we need to make sure we pass the group membership over. If they're a member of this group, then apply the forwarding profile ZPA guest. If they're a member of, if they're not a member of that group, they'll get this default policy, and the default policy sends them to the Welsh Geek forwarding profile and uses a pack file in here. So let's go ahead and take a look at the forwarding profile. So the forwarding profile for the guest users, bear in mind we don't care about trusted network because the user is a guest and therefore we'll never know what their network is, number one, but number two, trusted network really doesn't matter because we're only concerned with private access. So the forwarding profile for ZIA is set to none. And by setting it to none, it means we're not going to override any GPO, we're not going to install a tunnel adapter, we're not going to pick up any pack files or anything like that. It will leave the workstation to carry on functioning in its GPO policy, or whatever's configured on the machine. But for ZPA, we're going to select tunnel for all of these instances, but because we haven't got a trusted network criteria, as far as ZApp is concerned, they're always on a trusted network. So let's cancel out of that. And then for users that actually are part of our organization, they're going to get this the standard policy. It says, this is my DNS server, this, and if it is, then we're going to tunnel the traffic for ZIA, and we're going to tunnel the traffic for ZPA, and obviously no pack file or anything configured in this. So that's all fine. We've now got our profile set up. Let's go ahead and enroll the user. So I've got my Zscaler app, and I'm going to just install it, and I'm going to automatically say I'm on Zscaler Beta Cloud and WelshGeek.net. So you'd want to package this up to provide to your users. You might use an MSI for Windows, but I'm just going to go ahead and run this. It's going to prompt me for my credential because it needs to install as root. Go off and install, and away we go. So you'll notice it then minimizes. I want to open this up, and it's automatically taken me to the sign-in page. So here I'm going to enter mark.a.ryan@btinternet.com. I'm going to go ahead and sign in here. This really doesn't matter, but let's click no on that. It doesn't really matter because all we're getting from this is the SAML assertion for the connectivity. Okay, so my user account is enrolled at this point. You can see now I'm mark.a.ryan_btinternet.com and #ext welshgeek.net for ZPA, and for ZIA all access is disabled. So client is enrolled, and we had to enroll for internet security because you can't not enroll for internet security, but it's disabled and the user will never pass through Zscaler Internet Access. So there's no need to worry about any licensing. It's just the federation, the way the enrollment works. So let's go ahead and ping apache.welshgeek.net. And this time I'll get the 164.1.1 address, which is the stub network for ZPA. If I ping the Red Hat server, you get 1.2. But if I ping the Guacamole server, because it's not advertised application, sorry, it is picked up as an advertised application, but I'll actually get it denied by ZPA. So all of those things are passing through ZPA. let's go ahead now and go back to my browser. So the Guacamole server, if I refresh this now, I'll just get a page cannot be displayed because I'm actually getting denied access by Zscaler app. I'm not going to get a friendly error message. If I go to the Apache server, and because I'm coming in via Zscaler app, it's now the HTTP server. There's no HTTPS version. It was only the Zscaler browser-based access that was providing that SSL function out to the internet. The web server is actually only available HTTP inside my network. So that's all fine. But now I can also SSH to the Red Hat server. And that's passing via Zscaler private access using Zscaler app to tunnel that port 22 traffic. Apparently I need to run yum update. I probably should get around to doing that at some point, but not in the middle of this demo. So there we go. I can see what's going on here. But let's exit off of that. And the connection is closed. And we'll come back to the private access, and we'll take a look at this diagnostics. With a bit of luck, we'll see some logs. So here we go. We can see that our browser-based access deny messages occurred, and we can see that the user was accessing Guacamole server, and that got denied here as well up until 13:45. Let's go ahead and click update, and hopefully we'll start to see transactions flowing through. So here is the user doing the Apache request, and this time we came through as the client guest profile. The user was using Zscaler app. Again, we came through the Oregon connections. We accessed the server this way, this time over port 80. And we can also see the Red Hat connection. The user connected, they were connected for nearly 22 seconds. They used Zscaler app. Again, we can see the path, and we can see the IP address and port information. So there we go. How to get users to use browser-based access for web applications as guests, but also how to get Zscaler app enrolled using so that we can then pass traffic that's not just port 80 or 443, but also our SSH traffic. I could do CIFS through this. I could do any number of client-server applications for guest access using Zscaler private access. Thank you.